Hey everyone, and welcome to Milo Game Reviews, where we review games both new and old on all platforms. My name is Milo, and if you like the content that I make, then please subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you never miss a review when it comes out. Today I wanted to talk about Dispatch. This is a game that has taken the world, and also YouTube, by storm, and I myself have also gotten around playing it. The reason why it piqued my interest is that it was the team of writers and directors that had also made The Wolf Among Us, one of the best, if not the best, Telltale game out there, together with Walking Dead Season 1 in my opinion. Because despite the gameplay being quite limited in Wolf Among Us, and also the fact that choices in all honesty did not really matter, it's still one of the best written stories with deep characters that I've ever seen in video games. And Dispatch promised to create an adventure game set in a superhero setting with some adult content like violence and nudity, and therefore many put it in the same corner as other superhero shows like The Boys and Invincible. There's also a pretty star-studded cast involved in terms of gaming voice acting, as it was a collaboration with the popular online show Critical Role that features prominent voice actors like Matt Mercer, Laura Bailey, Ashley Johnson, Travis Willingham, and also Erin Yvette, who was brilliant as Snow White in Wolf Among Us. The main character is portrayed by Hollywood actor Aaron Paul, who many know from the award-winning show Breaking Bad. Now, the way that Dispatch was released was episodic, but not in a bad way like with many previous Telltale games. You see, for some of those games, it was clear that the creators and developers ran into problems with the remaining time to finish later episodes as they needed to reach a deadline. Usually, there would be 1 to 1.5 months in between episodes. But this time, there would be 2 episodes each week on a Wednesday for a total of 8 episodes after 1 month had passed. The reason why I think this worked so well is that it was clear to me that most of the game and animation was already done by the time they had the first 2 episodes released, since there was no way they could do all of that for the rest in a single month. But more importantly, since the game was slowly unveiling each week, it was on everyone's minds and lips for an entire month. That is also partially what has resulted in such success. It is that same problem that Netflix has run into in the past with the fact that they release shows in one take, which is fun for us as the viewer since we can binge them in a couple of days, but it also means that word of mouth dies very fast since everyone is looking for the next best thing just a week later. By releasing episodically, that word of mouth lasts longer, and that is exactly what happened with Dispatch. The story of Dispatch revolves around Robert Robertson, a regular human who controls a giant robot, and therefore his superhero name is Mecha Man. Within the first few minutes of the game, you learn that Robert's father has been killed by a bad guy known as Shroud, and you infiltrate his lair trying to stop him. This goes horribly wrong, and your robot is left incredibly damaged. Then you are recruited by a charming superhero known as Blonde Blazer, who very much resembles a Wonder Woman or Captain Marvel type of superhero. She invites you to partake in dispatching the so-called Z-Team, which is a team of former supervillains that tried their shot at redemption. In the beginning, everyone is very rude and aggressive towards Robert, but as you progress through the story, you slowly get to know them and the bonds with them change as the members warm up to each other. It's a great story with very unique and memorable characters. The animation is also beautifully done and showcases how good animation can be when animators receive the time to work on a project that they are passionate about. Nothing is rushed here, and you can see that in the end result. The game is a true joy to watch. And so Dispatch plays more like an interactive cartoon than an actual game. Even more so than a typical Telltale formula, where it also relies heavily on cutscenes where choices you make alter the responses and reactions of other characters. But in those games, you actually also get to walk around in the environment and interact with objects. That is simply not the case with Dispatch. Here you only watch the cutscenes and maybe do a quick-time event every so often when a battle takes place. But you cannot walk and explore the area and cannot interact with anything there. Instead, you will frequently be given a choice on how to react to a certain situation. A simple but great example is when you're being pestered at a bar by a superhero that controls the power of fire. You can either splash him with a glass of water, or with a glass of pure alcohol. The way the superhero and other characters react is very different and also quite funny, and many of the choices in the game actually had me think things over before making a choice. And I think that is a very good thing, as with some other adventure games, it's often very clear on what response is the one you need if you want the best outcome. The writing itself is also excellent, as it does not adhere to the typical romance routes you see in other games. There are 2 romance options available, but in many other games, those options often revolve simply around pampering or complimenting the person you are interested in. With Dispatch, this is done better. For you see, I went with the romance option of Invisigal in my playthrough, and at a certain point, she reveals some very shocking information about her past, and once you hear it, you can immediately forgive her. I was kinda surprised, though maybe in retrospect I should not have been, with how many people actually chose this answer, as they all probably were simping hard for Invisigal and wanted to get into her pants. I, on the other hand, was very shocked by the information and told her that I needed some time to figure things out, but eventually still ended up with her as my romantic partner. Again, this showcases that it has good writing, because a lesser written game would have either ended your romance route immediately if you questioned her after hearing this revelation, or only required you to compliment and forgive her. Relationships are much more complex and complicated than just saying the sweetest or best things, and I was pleasantly surprised that this game gives room for that. Another example is when the giant monster Golem shoves you out of the way during a meeting, and you have the choice to either scold him and put him in a timeout, or offer him a chair as you shrug his bullying attempt off. Again, I was so surprised that by far the most common answer by people were that they let it slide and offered him a chair. I cannot be sure of this, but I think it's because most people are afraid to worsen their relationships with the characters in the game and therefore always take a more submissive approach. But again, it is better written than that. I scolded him since his behavior was absolutely unacceptable and put him in a timeout like a schoolchild so that he would learn. And though that might have created some tension between us for a moment, it eventually all came around, and he even defended me in a very charming and touching scene later on. The writing in the game gives room for complex situations where you don't always have to give the goody two-shoes answers, and I love that. Now, I do think, though, that the writing itself is really good. The dialogue that was written can be a bit cringe and feeling like an edgy teenager wrote it for the first 3 episodes. There is a lot of cursing and slurs and swearing thrown around to the point where it becomes comical and puts me out of the experience. Now, mind you, I have no problem with strong language at all. In The Wolf Among Us, there's also plenty of swearing and cursing, but it feels natural there, and the same can be said for GTA 5. The types of swears and cursing in GTA are way worse, and more often than here, but the dialogue delivery feels once again natural. You can kinda hear how some of the voice actors had a rough time forcing so many swear words in there, including Jeffrey Wright, who is an excellent actor, but can clearly be heard reminding himself to say the word fuck 5 or 6 times within a single sentence. Other actors also do not get a whole lot to work with, like Alana Pierce in the first few episodes, where I think she says something to the extent of, this bullshit is bullshit, I'm tired of all this bullshit. Yeah, great writing. And don't get me wrong, the characters themselves and the story are still fantastic during those first 3 episodes, but during those episodes, there's just a lot of cringy dialogue. From what I understand, these episodes were written by the same writer who also worked on Tales of the Borderlands, and in that game, this kind of dialogue suits better since Borderlands is all about that kind of childish toilet humor with the butt stallions, etc. But here, it's really not necessary, and it clearly shows as the dialogue gets so much better and more on point from episode 4 onward. There's still plenty of swearing and sex jokes, but not to the point where it feels forced. Then finally, let's actually talk about the one real gameplay aspect of Dispatch, namely the dispatching. Every episode, there are 1 or 2 sections where you get to dispatch your supervillains and have them complete tasks. You do this in a static screen that shows you the map of Los Angeles. Then exclamation marks will pop up on the screen and you can click on them to hear about what kind of task is needed to be done. This can vary from mundane tasks like saving an old lady's cat from a tree to fighting off a baby kaiju that is destroying the city or evacuating civilians from a burning building. Each task requires a certain expertise, and the types of expertise needed are often more than one. For fighting the kaiju, you might need a supervillain who excels at brute strength or good defense, whereas during a promotional tour assignment, you need someone with good speech skills or charisma. There are 5 different skills in total, and those are the equivalents of strength, defense, speed, intelligence, and charisma. If your team of villains turned superheroes complete a mission correctly, then they will earn experience points and eventually level up so you can increase their stats. The game is made in a way to where no superhero can excel at all skills, so you will have to make decisions and specialize each hero so that you have them ready for specific tasks. For example, Invisigal, for me, was very fast and charismatic, so I would often send her if people needed to be evacuated or if speech was a necessity. Whereas Flambe and Punch Up were really good in fighting and defending people, so they would be sent out during missions that required heavy hitters. Sometimes during a mission there's a holdup and you need to solve a little puzzle. You will get a choice on how to solve this by selecting a skill that is required, like talk down a rioting mob until they are calm, or punch them a few times until they are calm. If you have heroes sent on that mission with high enough stats for that specific choice, then you will succeed in that mission. What is cool is that you only need to complete one of those requirements, so I always looked at which skills were all necessary and then simply sent in my heroes that had the highest stat for that specific skill check. So for example, if intelligence and speed were necessary, I just sent the heroes with the highest intelligence so that I would 100% complete that specific skill check if they asked for it. Occasionally, you will also get a special response if you sent out a specific hero catered to that situation. From what I could tell, this always results in a good completion. You can also upgrade your hero's abilities by sending them to study, and some of these abilities are really good. My MVPs were definitely Prism, Golem, and Punch Up, as they have the ability to fill in empty slots by the use of their powers. Prism, for example, makes a copy of the partner she is with and doubles their stats, which means you can easily complete any mission you send them on for the price of 2 heroes instead of 3. Golem will fill in empty spots with weaker versions of himself, which can still add up quite a bit in the end. And Punch Up will sometimes put himself in automatically once a team is full, which is great if you lack a certain amount of skill stats for that mission. While the heroes are away on missions, you cannot send them out again until they are back and fully rested. This is where the management factor comes in, as you have to carefully plan and dispatch to avoid having no heroes to send out to. I have heard multiple people say that they found this incredibly stressful and difficult, and that they did not do well at all, and all I can honestly say is, how? It also took me a little while to figure it out, but by episode 3 and onward, I was absolutely killing the dispatching and achieved multiple perfect runs. Like I said, you have to use the powers like duplication or Golem's fill-in ability to really min-max the amount of units that you can dispatch. If a mission fails, your hero will take damage, and their skill points are halved. But Malevola has the ability to heal a partner she is sent out with on a mission, and thereby you can counter this. I really enjoyed the dispatching and would have a lot of fun deciding on who was the best for this specific mission, and would also tense up if I only had 1 or 2 people to send on a mission that required 3 or more. Multiple times I was performing on the razor's edge, as I was mere seconds away from failing an incoming call just to wait for more heroes to recover from resting. The dispatch mechanic is great, and I hope to see it expanded upon in a future Chapter 2, which undoubtedly will arrive since the game has sold more than 2 million copies. I think dispatch is a wonderful gift to us gamers at the end of the year, and I do hope in future iterations to actually see more gameplay. I still prefer the Telltale formula, where you get to walk around and explore the areas, and Dispatch's colorful environments and setting are perfect to discover for ourselves. More gameplay and a bit better dialogue writing for the first 3 episodes would have upped the score more, but for now, the first season of Dispatch gets a very well earned 8.5. There's still room for improvement with the sequel, and if implemented, I have no doubt that the next season will easily cross that 9 score threshold and more. It did take over 2 years to make this though, and you can definitely tell by how good the animation is. It will be a bit painful to wait again for such a long time for a continuation of the story, but if the result is yet again as good as this, I will gladly do so.